Okay, so are you ready for this? Today, we're diving deep into magic realism. You know that genre where the impossible, it's not even impossible, it is. Like it's Tuesday. Think levitating saints just casually doing laundry. It's that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And we've got a whole stack of sources here from like the OG master Gabriel Garcia Marquez all the way to the mind-bending Haruki Murakami, especially his novel Kafka on the Shore.
Oh, yeah. Kafka on the Shore.
So are you ready to find the magic that's kind of hidden in the everyday?
Absolutely.
Let's go.
All right, so one thing that's so interesting about magic realism is that it's not just about throwing in fantastical elements. It's about blending them seamlessly with the mundane to the point where you start to question what real even means.
Yeah, like what is real?
Right.
And to really like get this, I think we have to go back to like the beginning. And surprisingly, it didn't even start in literature.
Exactly. The term magic realism, it actually originated in the art world in the 1920s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this German art critic, Franz Roh, he used it to describe these paintings that depicted everyday objects, but with his eerie, almost dreamlike quality. And it was all about finding the extraordinary within the ordinary.
So like those paintings where a bowl of fruit suddenly feels like it holds the secrets of the universe?
Precisely. And this concept, it eventually found its way into literature, particularly in the mid-20th century. A perfect example, Gabriel Garcia Marquez's masterpiece, 100 Years of Solitude. You've got a character just ascending to heaven while hanging laundry. And it's presented as if it's the most normal thing in the world.
It's like, oh yeah, just another day in Macondo. People just float off to heaven sometimes.
Exactly.
Okay, that's so wild.
Yeah. That's the pure essence of magic realism. Presenting the magical is totally commonplace. But the timing of its rise in literature, that's also really significant. The mid-20th century, think about it, it was a period of huge global upheaval, post-war trauma, massive cultural shifts, empires crumbling, magic realism. It became a way to process these really turbulent experiences, to express those emotions and anxieties that defied purely realistic portrayal.
So it's like, how do you even begin to capture the absurdity and chaos of a world that's just been reshaped by war? Sometimes, I guess you need a little magic to make sense of it all.
Precisely. And authors like Márquez, they weren't just exploring personal struggles, they were weaving in these larger societal and political issues. 100 Years of Solitude, it's a prime example, reflecting the really turbulent history of Colombia through this lens of magical realism.
Okay, so magic realism, it starts in art, explodes in literature, and it often reflects these big, messy historical moments. But it wasn't confined to just Latin America, right?
Absolutely not. Magic realism, it resonated globally. It offered this powerful tool for authors to, reframe history and challenge those well-established narratives. Take Salman Rushdie's Midnight's Children, for instance. He blends these magical elements with the historical events of India's independence, blurring the lines between personal and political realities.
It's like he's saying, hey, Britain, your version of the story isn't the only one. He's using magic to reclaim the narrative.
Precisely. And then there's Toni Morrison. In Beloved, she uses magic realism to explore the trauma of slavery in a way that traditional storytelling just couldn't capture. By giving a voice to the marginalized, both Rushdie and Morrison, they show how magic realism can be this force for social commentary.
Wow, so it's not just about fantastical events, it's about perspective. You're using these impossible scenarios to reveal, hidden truths, to make us question what we think we know.
Exactly. Magic realism, it challenges us to reconsider history, to see the world through these different lenses. It's a way of deconstructing those dominant narratives and offering alternative perspectives.
Okay, I'm really starting to see how magic realism is more than just a literary style. It's a way of thinking, of challenging assumptions. But let's shift gears for a second and talk about a modern master of this genre, Haruki Murakami. He's got this knack for blending the surreal with everyday life. He captures those feelings of isolation and longing that, honestly, so many of us probably feel in the modern world.
Murakami's novels, they're like walking through a dream, familiar yet disorienting. Think of those moments where you're walking down a crowded street and you suddenly feel utterly alone. That's like the pure essence of the Murakami mood. And he takes that feeling to the extreme in Kafka on the Shore.
And Kafka on the Shore, he throws us headfirst into the deep end of the surreal. You've got Kafka, this teenage runaway fleeing this dark prophecy, and then there's Nakata, an older gentleman who, can talk to cats. It's like, wait, what? Did I miss something?
But that's the beauty of Murakami. He just embraces the strange, the inexplicable. And by doing so, he forces us to confront those existential questions we often try to avoid.
Right. It's like he's saying, the world is weird, get over it. But he does it in a way that's both unsettling and oddly comforting at the same time. How does he even do that?
It's his mastery of magic realism.
Yeah.
He uses these fantastical elements to explore these really profound themes of identity, memory, and the search for meaning in a world that can feel both familiar and utterly alien.
Okay, we've got this foundation now, but let's unpack Kafka on the Shore a little further. I mean, this book, it's dense, even for like seasoned Murakami readers. I feel like we need a map.
Absolutely. Think of Kafka on the Shore as a labyrinth, full of twists and turns and dead ends and unexpected revelations. And just when you think you've found your way, Murakami shifts the landscape, revealing these new layers of meaning.
Okay, so we're all lost together. That's reassuring.
Right.
But where do we even begin with this labyrinth? Where's the entrance?
Well, we have two main characters, each with their own journey, their own set of impossible circumstances. On the one hand, you have Kafka, haunted by this Oedipal curse, trying to outrun his, predetermined fate.
Hold on. A Greek myth in a Japanese novel. What's going on there?
That's Murakami for you. He's not afraid to pull from different cultures and mythologies to create something entirely new and unexpected. But the Oedipal curse, it isn't just some random plot device. It's a metaphor for how the past, even those ancient stories, can trap us.
You, the listener, might be thinking, why a Greek myth in a Japanese novel? Well, Murakami uses this to show how the past, even ancient stories, can trap us. It's about those burdens we carry, the weight of expectations, and the struggle to break free from those patterns.
Exactly. And then there's Misada, whose ability to talk to cats, it isn't just a quirky superpower. It's connected to this traumatic event in his past, to a piece of himself that's been lost.
Okay, I kind of get the cat thing, but it feels almost too simple. Is it just like a cute gimmick, or is there something deeper going on?
Don't just think cute gimmick. This is Murakami, showing us that language, even with animals, can be a bridge to the parts of ourselves we've lost. It's about the power of connection, even in the most unexpected forms.
Wow, I never thought about the cat thing that way. That's deep. But then there's also this character, Crow. He's Kafka's guide. But is he real? Is he a metaphor? What's the deal with Crow?
Crow, he embodies that ambiguity and mystery that just permeates the whole novel. He's a trickster figure, a shapeshifter, always lurking in the shadows, offering cryptic advice and challenging Kafka's perceptions. Think of him as the voice of doubt, the one that questions everything. He pushes Kafka, and by extension the reader, to confront the unknown.
Okay, talking cats, prophecies, cryptic guides, Murakami's grocery list must be wild.
Right.
But seriously, it's like he's saying that sometimes the strangest encounters are with ourselves. But where do dreams fit into all of this? They seem to play this huge role in Kafka on the Shore.
Dreams in Kafka on the Shore, they aren't just symbolic, they bleed into reality. It becomes almost impossible to distinguish what's real and what's imagined.
So it's like he's questioning the very nature of reality itself. It's all relative, all subjective.
Exactly. And that's where magic realism comes in. It allows Murakami to explore those liminal spaces where consciousness and the subconscious intersect. He's peeling back the layers of perception, revealing the strangeness that exists beneath the surface of everyday life.
It's almost like he's saying, hey, what if the most fantastical elements of the story are the most real? What if our dreams hold more truth than we even realize?
Precisely. And that's what makes magic realism so compelling. It's not about escapism. It's about confronting those aspects of ourselves and our world that are just difficult to articulate, to fully grasp.
All right, so we've got lost teenagers, talking cats, cryptic guides, and dreams blurring with reality. It's a lot to process, even for a deep dive. But how does this all connect back to the bigger picture of magic realism? Why should we, the listeners, care about this genre?
That's a great question. Magic realism isn't just a passing literary trend. It's a profound movement that has reshaped storytelling and how we understand the world around us. Remember, it emerged during a time of global upheaval, when reality itself felt increasingly fragmented and uncertain.
It's like the world had become so strange, so unpredictable, that traditional storytelling just couldn't capture the full scope of human experience anymore.
Exactly. Magic realism emerged as a way to grapple with that strangeness, to explore those facets of reality that defied logic and reason. It allowed authors to give a voice to the marginalized, to challenge these dominant narratives, and to explore those hidden dimensions of the human psyche that often get overlooked in more conventional forms of storytelling.
So it's not just about escapism, it's about finding new ways to engage with reality, to make sense of the chaos and the complexity of the world around us. But why does it still resonate with us today? I mean, things are still pretty crazy, but we're not in like the post-war era anymore.
That's the thing. We might not be in the post-war era, but the world is still incredibly complex, and it often feels just as chaotic. We're bombarded with information, conflicting narratives, this constant stream of images and sounds that it can just feel overwhelming. It's like we're all searching for meaning, for connection, in a world that often feels both magical and terrifying at the same time.
Yeah, it's on the one hand, we have access to all this knowledge and technology, but on the other hand, we're more disconnected than ever.
Exactly. And that's where magic realism comes in.
Hmm.
It reminds us that there's more to the world than meets the eye, that there's beauty and wonder to be found in the everyday if we just know where to look. It encourages us to question our assumptions, to embrace the unknown, and to find meaning in the surreal.
So it's not just about escaping reality, it's about seeing it more clearly, like putting on a special pair of glasses that just reveal the magic hidden beneath the surface.
Precisely. And that's what makes it so relevant to our lives today.
Hmm.
It's a reminder that even in a world that often feels mundane, there's still room for wonder, for imagination, for magic.
Okay, I'm convinced. Magic realism is awesome and I need to read more of it. But before we send our listeners off on their own Murakami adventures, I think we need to go back to Kafka on the Shore and really break down some of those key elements. We talked about the Oedipal curse and Nakata's cat conversations, but there's so much more going on. Where do we even begin?
Well, one of the most fascinating aspects of Kafka on the Shore is how Murakami uses magic realism to explore the concept of duality. Think about it. We have two main characters, Kafka and Nakata, each representing like a different side of the same coin. Kafka is the intellectual, the bookish teenager grappling with his own identity, while Nakata is the intuitive, almost childlike figure who operates on like a different level of consciousness.
It's like they represent two different ways of experiencing the world, the head and the heart, the rational and the intuitive. But how does that duality tie into the larger themes of the novel?
Well, think about it this way. Kafka, he's obsessed with his prophecy, this idea that he's destined to kill his father and sleep with his mother. He's trying to outrun fate, to exert control over his own narrative. But in doing so, he becomes consumed by the very thing he's trying to avoid.
It's like that old saying, the more you tighten your grip, the more sand slips through your fingers.
Exactly. And then you have Nakata, who's not burdened by intellectual analysis or self-doubt. He simply acts, guided by his intuition and his connection to the natural world.
So it's like Kafka is trapped in his own head, while Nakata is more connected to his instincts, to something larger than himself.
Precisely. And through these two characters, Murakami explores that tension between conscious and unconscious desires, between free will and fate.
Okay, I'm starting to see how the duality of Kafka and Nakata adds this whole other layer of meaning to the story. But what about some of the other, fantastical elements? We talked about Nakata talking to cats, but what about that scene where fish literally rain from the sky? What's the significance of that?
The raining fish. A classic Murakami moment. Remember, magic realism is about using the impossible to illuminate these deeper truths about the human condition. In this case, the raining fish could be interpreted as a metaphor for the absurdity of life, the unpredictable nature of existence. It's like Murakami is saying, expect the unexpected because sometimes life just throws you a curveball.
So it's not just a random quirky event, it's a commentary on the inherent chaos and unpredictability of life.
Exactly. It's a reminder that we don't always have control, that sometimes we just have to ride the wave. And that's a theme that runs throughout the whole novel. The idea of surrendering to the unknown, embracing the journey, even when it takes us to these unexpected places.
It's like he's saying, stop trying to make sense of everything and just go with the flow, which honestly is pretty good advice for life in general. But what about some of the other symbols and metaphors in the book? I know we've talked about the Oedipal curse, but there's also a lot of emphasis on libraries, on lost memories, on the idea of entering another world. How do those elements tie into the bigger picture?
Well, the library, it's a recurring motif in Murakami's work, often representing a portal to another realm, a place where the boundaries between reality and imagination become blurred. In Kafka on the Shore, the library becomes like a sanctuary for Kafka, a place where he can escape the chaos of his own life and immerse himself in stories.
It's like he's finding solace and meaning in the world of books, which, as a fellow bookworm, I can definitely relate to.
Exactly. And the idea of lost memories, that also plays a significant role in the novel. Both Kafka and Nakata are grappling with these fragmented memories, with pieces of their past that have been lost or suppressed.
So it's like they're both searching for something, for a sense of wholeness, for a way to piece together the missing parts of themselves.
Precisely. And this search for identity, it's intimately connected to the idea of entering another world. Throughout the novel, characters cross thresholds, both literal and metaphorical, into these realms where the rules of reality no longer apply.
It's like they're stepping outside of their comfort zones, venturing into the unknown in order to discover who they truly are.
Exactly. And that's one of the most powerful aspects of magic realism, its ability to transport us to other worlds, to expand our understanding of what's possible.
Okay, so we've got duality, raining fish, libraries as portals, lost memories, entering other worlds. It's like Murakami is throwing all these different symbols and metaphors at us, and it's our job to figure out what they mean. It's a lot to take in, but it's also incredibly engaging. It makes you want to keep reading, to keep peeling back the layers and see what else you can discover.
That's the beauty of Murakami's work. He doesn't give you all the answers. He invites you to participate in the meaning-making process. He wants you to get lost in the labyrinth of his imagination and emerge with your own interpretations.
It's like he's saying, here's the map, but you choose the path, which is both exciting and terrifying all at the same time. But before we completely lose ourselves in the labyrinth, I think we need to zoom out a bit and talk about the broader significance of magic realism. We've talked about how it helps us understand ourselves and the world around us, but what about its lasting impact on literature? How has it influenced the way we tell stories?
That's a great question. Magic realism has had a profound impact on storytelling, opening up these new possibilities for how we explore complex themes and engage with reality. It's given rise to countless authors who have embraced its techniques to create these unique and captivating narratives.
So it's not just a genre, it's like a movement, a way of thinking about storytelling that continues to inspire writers today.
Absolutely. And its influence can be seen in various forms of art, from literature and film to visual art and music.
It's like it's seeped into the collective consciousness, changing the way we perceive the world and the stories we tell.
Precisely. And that's a testament to its power and enduring relevance.
Okay, so magic realism is more than just a literary style. It's a way of seeing the world, a way of thinking about storytelling. And it continues to influence how we create and consume art. But before we wrap up our deep dive, I want to circle back to Kafka on the Shore one last time. We've talked about the big themes, the symbolism, the fantastical elements, but what about the ending? I know some readers find it ambiguous, even frustrating. How do we make sense of it?
Well, the ending of Kafka on the Shore, it's definitely open to interpretation. It's not a neat and tidy resolution, but rather a continuation of the journey. Remember, Murakami is less interested in providing answers and more interested in raising questions, in prompting us to think critically and engage with the ambiguity of life.
So it's not about finding all the answers, but about embracing the mystery, the unknown.
Exactly. And that's a fitting ending for a novel that celebrates the power of imagination and the beauty of uncertainty.
Okay, I can get behind that. Sometimes the best stories are the ones that leave us with more questions than answers, the ones that stay with us long after we've finished reading. But before we completely lose ourselves in the mysteries of Kafka on the Shore, I think it's time to bring our deep dive to a close. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the origins of magic realism to its impact on literature, and even how it helps us understand the world around us. But before we wrap up, I want to touch on something that really stood out to me. We've talked about how magic realism often deals with difficult or traumatic experiences, but it's not just about dwelling in darkness. There's also this sense of hope, this idea that even in the face of adversity, we can find beauty and meaning.
What's fascinating is how magic realism allows authors to approach these difficult topics in a way that feels both honest and imaginative. It's not about sugarcoating reality, but about finding those glimmers of hope and resilience that exist even in the darkest of times.
It's like magic realism gives us permission to embrace the full spectrum of human experience. The joy and the sorrow, the light and the shadow. It reminds us that life is messy and complicated, and that's okay.
Exactly. And by embracing that complexity, by acknowledging the presence of both darkness and light, magic realism allows us to see the world with more nuance, with more compassion, and ultimately with more hope.
It's like it's saying, hey, life might be strange and unpredictable, but there's still beauty to be found, even in the most unexpected places. You know, while we're on the topic of hope, one thing that really struck me about magic realism, especially in Kafka on the Shore, is how it deals with trauma. These characters have been through some pretty heavy stuff, but it's not all doom and gloom. There's this sense of resilience, of finding a way forward, even when things feel broken.
That's one of the most remarkable things about magic realism, I think. It doesn't shy away from those difficult experiences, but it also doesn't let them define the narrative. Instead, it uses these fantastical elements to explore the complexities of trauma, to show how people can heal and find meaning even in the face of profound loss and suffering.
It's like, imagine trying to explain the emotional weight of something like childhood trauma, but using only realistic language. It can feel flat, almost clinical, but magic realism, it allows you to tap into this whole other level of expression. You can use metaphors, symbolism, even those impossible scenarios to convey the emotional truth of the experience in a way that resonates on a much deeper level.
Exactly. It's like magic realism gives us this new language for talking about those difficult things, a way to make the invisible visible. And in doing so, it opens up possibilities for healing, for understanding, for connection.
So it's not just about entertainment, it's about empathy, about seeing the world through someone else's eyes, even if those eyes perceive things in a way that might seem strange or unsettling to us.
Precisely. And that's what makes magic realism so powerful, I think. It challenges our perceptions, expands our understanding of what it means to be human, and reminds us that there's always more to the story than meets the eye.
Okay, I'm feeling inspired. I'm ready to go out there and embrace the magic, the mystery, the weirdness of it all. But before we wrap things up, I want to pose one final thought for our listeners. We've talked a lot about famous authors and their works, but what about the magic realism that exists in our own lives? What if we started looking at the world through that lens? What if we allowed ourselves to see the extraordinary in the ordinary, to find those moments of wonder that often go unnoticed?
That's a wonderful thought. What if we started paying attention to those synchronicities, those coincidences that seem to defy explanation? What if we just opened ourselves up to the possibility that there's more to reality than we can perceive with just our five senses?
Right. It's like we might not encounter talking cats or raining fish, but maybe there's a different kind of magic waiting to be discovered. Maybe it's in the way the sunlight filters through the leaves, or the sound of laughter echoing through a crowded street, or the unexpected kindness of a stranger.
Those everyday moments of grace and beauty, they often hold a kind of magic,
Hmm.
a kind of enchantment that we tend to overlook. But if we start paying attention, if we open ourselves up to the possibility, we might just find that the world is a far more wondrous and mysterious place than we ever imagined.
All right, that's a beautiful note to end on. So, to our listeners, we encourage you to go out there and embrace the magic. Explore the works of the authors we've discussed, but also, pay attention to the subtle magic that exists in your own lives. And until next time, keep diving deep.